How are you guys doing today? My name is Evan. Today is April 12th, 2021. It is nice to see you guys again. Welcome back. If you're new, welcome. New kid. If you are new, a lot of folks refer to me as the YouTube John Stonkton. And also when I get that cooking going, Chef Boyardee swing. Now, I know some of you who are new are probably like, this guy sounds like a douchebag, and well, you're not wrong. No, I'm kidding. I actually don't talk like that in real life. A lot of this stuff is very satire-esque. I like to do that Jon Stewart kind of vibe where it's like I take it seriously, but not so seriously that I'm wearing a suit every time with a button-up shirt and acting like I dress like that in real life. I don't. I'm just a normal guy like you guys. If you are new, I'm here to show you guys technical analysis. Now, of course, I do some fundamental analysis on my plays as well before I post them, but you know, the main goal for me is to show you how I charts, right? I'm gonna look at supports, resistances, trend lines, patterns for sure, EMA lines, the 20, 50, and 10, and then look at the RSI, stochastic, and vortex. All those things that I put together, I do on the chart the first time, the right time. It's a great habit to chart these correctly when you first like them, and then you can watch and be patient with them. When it comes to intermediate traders, if you like to play PLTR, oof. You also want to play CCIV, NIO, Tesla, Apple, all those kind of tech stocks, I'm here to show you some diversity. I am very big and nerdy into sector rotation and focusing sectors and indexes, and so I'm going to show you how I kind of go through my day and find some great value and such and things like that. You put all that together plus fundamentals, plus you should chart these yourself and take this as an educational process, and you can really improve your trading with that. The real beauty of this channel, though, is that there's a plenty of traders online who don't have cats, like my boy here, but they also do the half of YouTube where it's like, hey, here's some great charts, and then they just say, here you go, and get out of the way. And then some folks do educational stuff, right? I take both those and put them together. Now, the educational emphasis, my boob, is definitely put towards swing trading, right? But you can take both these things, educational and applicability, and put them together. If you are enjoying this kind of content, this sounds interesting to you, hit the like button, subscribe, and bell notification. I'm waiting. Go ahead, scroll down, punk. Thank you. No, it does mean a lot to me. It does make a big difference. It does help me get this out to more people. The algorithm does enjoy it. The more I talk about this and subscribe, the channel then gets pushed out by the algorithm. So make sure you guys do like that and, you know, hit those buttons for sure. I do appreciate it. Lastly, there is a Discord chat. If you do enjoy this kind of content, I do nightly newsletters, morning newsletters. I do live updates on large indexes. I do my own live calls when I have the chance to do so. I don't buy too many stocks that often because I swing. I buy one every like 2 or 3 days, and then I usually get stopped out or I buy a new one where that happens. So not too much live calling going on. I'm not one of those people who are like, hey, here's 5,000 winning trades, check my professional. No, I'm a normal guy just like you guys. I also have busy days too. And so you want to get some more insight. You want to get this content, but more premium style, you know, check it out. 7-day free trial. Add me on Discord. Also go ahead. Sorry, I got distracted by my cat. And also you can just look at it on Patreon. No big deal. No pressure. If you like it, great. If not, no big deal either. Otherwise, 8 great takers today. We're looking at a lot of basic materials. I think they have a lot of promise in the next week or two, and then some tech stocks as well. With that being said, let's get into it. So, I think this week should have a lot of interesting twists and turns as we go through it. Obviously, it's been a lot of ups and downs for some people. I think and hoping you can see energy today had a big push up and then it did in fact dip down. I'm hoping energy holds. This is a very good support area. If it does dip down farther and keeps going, I'm still very bullish on it. It's probably the best deal of all the sectors so far. I think another great one right now is basic materials. It's showing some good life. We could also look at discretionary. If it does break here and holds, could have a lot of great potential this week. You know, even real estate has some room, but these are all, I mean, a lot of these are getting overbought. You know, financials is, if it breaks there, it'll be great. Technology looking okay. So we got some options overall with our picks this week, and I'm really trying to focus in on some sectors. There's also some really good sales going on up here. I think the biggest one is DraftKings. I mean, I was talking about today in some other chats. It's bouncing right where I thought it was going to bounce. You know, it comes down, hits here, and lives. If you want to get in DraftKings, it makes a lot of sense. Ride's really low. I mean, I think semis coming down where I'd probably buy getting soon here. A few are looking really good. I mean, I don't think ABS looks good. It looks okay. So there's some value to be had, and I think the biggest and most important part is during red days or bad days for you is that you still get better at trading. It may not be buying and selling stocks, but it could be scanning, there could be journaling, there could be finding new price targets, doing some fundamental research, whatever it is. Even on red days, you should be doing something productive. And I always preach that to the folks I work with, that it's never about always buying and selling to get better. You know, it's like practicing for basketball or a sport or music or an instrument. You may not be in an orchestra or on a team, but if you are at home practicing, doing something else like dribbling at home, shooting at home, you know, doing your tabs, researching, you're always gonna get better. And so our first one today is LTHM, and you're probably thinking again, I don't see any lines, I'm scared. Well, let's do these together as always. So first things first is we have our support areas, and there's a bunch in here. You can put one down here, you can put one down here, you can put one wherever you want. The most relevant one to me makes sense is to be right here. This is a really strong one in this area. You could also say there's one probably right about here. And seeing as this is breaking right now, showing no sign of life, you can see it's just dropping down. I'm definitely not going to put a lot of emphasis onto this one, so I may take this one and adjust it as needed. I think right about there makes a lot of sense. That's probably good. And our first resistance will probably be somewhere around here moving forward, right? And I make my resistances orange as always. That's my color choice. I like white as support, orange as resistances. Of course, you look for trend lines. I think the best trend line comes from this area. That's how it's coming up. Now it's coming down. I want to come probably from here and come right. And we can see quite a lot of action does line up in this area, right? We have this candle, this candle, this candle, and we missed these moves. But again, we always like to make a channel, you know, encompass a few more small moves here. And we can see this may be a bit broad. Let's check the size of this channel up here. All right, 5%. You know, a lot of folks, their minimum loss in the trade's 5%, so that's okay. And we have our trend line. When it comes to a pattern, most patterns start with resistance trend lines as well. I think you come over here and see that we have a resistance trend line forming. Now it's harder to put together. Now I make these also orange. I make these dotted just so they're not in the way as much. Dotted resistance trend line, looking really good. You can see it's making a triangle right here. And then we can always look at our volume profile, VP is what I called it. We have volume above us. That's always a good sign. Long term, we have volume above us, looking really nice and juicy. I've always appreciate that. Hello Kitty, how are you? Oh, I gotta get these one hand today, I guess. Looking really good right here. You know, make that our little area where most of percentages happen at. Our volume profile is down here. This is very strong support resistance, and it's also very gravitational. So we'll see if this does hold any weight moving forward. And there you have it. And so what we're looking at with LTHM, you would say it's an uptrending ticker here. And this is a great lesson in broadening wedges, is that we can see that over here we had a nice moving ascension, but then also this line right here was broadening out. And as soon as this didn't touch up here, so that didn't happen, a new pattern formed. And the pattern started with lower highs and then lower lows. And what we're looking at here is lower high, lower low, lower high coming down. But look at lower low, then make it higher low, higher high, hopeful higher low. So we're trying to see a triangle form here. If this does hold, I think the support's gonna be the most important part where we want to put it. I think what's also gonna be really important is that this area, this price does hold above either 1583 or 1562. If we can get down to this area, you know, and holds and does well, we can see a lot of really good gains here. If it does hold, let's say it's hypothetically $16.10, we could easily see a 12-13% move. And if it does break out from here and does have lower or higher highs and higher lows throughout, it could be a fantastic trade. So LTHM, a beautiful triangle forming, a beautiful trend line, higher lows. I love to see it. Let's check the indicators. What's super cool about this channel, besides my sick nicknames, is that I do not check the indicators while I scan. There's no EMA lines. I use the 15, the 200, and the 10. I don't use RSI, stochastic, or the vortex while I'm scanning. It's all off of price action. So everything that I'm going to show you here, these 5 things I look at, they're all going to be live with you so you can see what I see in real time. What's going to be very important to you is that the 50 and the 200 are both above it. Just like the opposite, when the price is above the 200 and the 50 on a long-term move up here, you get the best gains. When it's below both of them, you get very strong resistances. We're going to have a very strong resistance and a hard time getting over both of these. Your price target in the short term should be based off of both of these. If you can get up to about the 50, then it starts to die off, I would not be surprised. If it does get up to the 200 and starts to die off, I would not get surprised. So again, on a short term, not long term, but on a short term basis, that needs to be part of your guys' price target and your wealth evaluation. RSI, stupid low. You like to see it. Stochastic is very low. That looks really good here. No divergences really at all. It looks to be matching up pretty well. And if it does start to curl north, this blue line does cross the red, we could get a really nice move tomorrow or into the next day, or see a nice reversal starting to happen. And lastly, we can see that vortex. The bulls are oversold. Bears are overbought exactly where you want them. Moving forward with this ticker, LTHM, again, the sectors need to have some life, the major indexes need to have some life, and that may be a problem for some stuff, and for some tickers, of course. But of course, moving forward, LTHM makes a lot of sense. So next is NTR. It's looking pretty good here. We can see consistent higher low, higher low, higher low across the board. And recently it didn't have one. It did have a lower low and then a lower high. And so we need to see it reverse soon. If it does come down to like 53.39, it needs to start to reverse. If it doesn't, I wouldn't touch it. This is still very much forming again a triangle of some sorts, and we're trying to see a breakout happening. If this does continue down, it's red. If you see red tomorrow, just don't buy it. There's no point of trying to trade when there's no value to trade off of certain kind of tickers. And again, I'm just trying to show you guys technical analysis and fundamentals to go with it, those kinds of things. If this does dip down further, I'm not going to be overly bullish on it. So looking pretty good though overall. And again, the big thing is risk versus reward. If this does dip down further, maybe like $54 and some change. Again, what are you risking? 1-2%, but if you break above the resistance line, making 3, 4, 5, 6 pretty easily. So if the basic materials as a sector keeps doing pretty well, NTR may be a really good pickup for this week. And again, we could also do a resistance trend line here. We can see it's also possibly forming a new channel up. So if this does live here, again, you may even see 14% moving forward. So let's give it some time. If it starts to reverse, it may be a great sign of some strength moving forward. I do like it, but I need to see some strength first. Let's check the indicators. So it's beautiful that we're seeing this kind of happen, and this is going to be interesting to see moving forward with a lot of these tickers as we kind of come back from that big dip off. Is that the 50 is now above us and the 200 is now below us. And so if you want to buy off a value, you're probably not going to get much better value than where it is right now. It bounces up the 200 very well. Bounce, bounce, bounce. That's where we are right now. If it does break above the 50 and holds, you can have some hope going forward that maybe it's a good spot to be into, and you can wait for that crossover, and that's probably the best option. RSI is low. It could be lower. Of course, it could be lower, but it is pretty low. That's pretty great. Stochastic was low, and it started to curl recently, and now it's coming back down. So we may be seeing a lower stochastic, maybe gets to like -74. If that's the case, that's the value. It could be a great buy there. And then it's consolidating. We can see bulls are losing some strength. Bears are getting overbought. We want to see the bears get a little bit higher, bulls get a little bit lower to be the optimal buy-in spot. Now, if the bulls here do take over and keep going, that's a good sign of strength. So NTR, give it a day, give it 2 days, put us, around Tuesday or Wednesday to buy into this one if it does show us some life. But NTR moving forward does look pretty good for sure. Next is OEC. This is not the greatest channel to be playing off of. It's very reminiscent of what the NASDAQ kind of looks like. It looks very similar to the NASDAQ overall. So there's breakings happening and going up and over. But this is a very strong support area. And again, I like to play off of risk versus reward. This is a very strong resistance anywhere in here. And we can see it's, it's kind of shying away from it. There is a chance that it's going to come up, test this trend line, consolidate, and then keep going. It does that before, right? It tests this area. It's testing it currently. If it does show some red tomorrow, just wait. And if it does, oh, there it goes. If it does hold here and keeps going, can easily see 7-8%. And even here, if you're risking everything, 4%, more than you want to risk. So, I mean, if you want to do like a nervous stop loss, possibly around maybe like, 1860, maybe even 1875 if it breaks this lower candle over here, then you could sell off, buy back in and show some life. But the whole key here is risk versus reward. OEC with proper stop losses, it does give us that, and there's plenty of uptrends going forward. Higher low, higher low, higher low. Lower highs making some kind of a triangle. Make sure you watch that. But OEC may have some really big breakout potential moving forward. Let's check the indicators. So we can see the 50 EMA line often gets broken. Broken. It does get below it, and what's it almost always do so far in the last 6 months, it always comes back. So you have options here. Every single one of our trades has convergence, and by convergence I mean we have supports, trend lines, and patterns all coming together. That's not a reason to buy a ticker all the time. Most times you want to get a good value or an EMA crossover some type. Maybe for you it's going to be the 50, the 200, the 100, maybe it's an SMA line. If you want to buy off of a crossover, that's totally valid, and this is a great example of doing that. So you can either go off of value, like if you're watching OEC here, you're like, I think the best value is going to be 1759 to you. If it gets down here, which it does bounce off the 200, if it dies and gets down here, great value. And then if it does cross above the 15 holds, another sign of a great value. Just make sure if you do a 50 EMA crossover, you move your stop loss up to make risk versus reward make some sense. So this looks like a good area to buy into if it does break back above. If not, I think the 200 makes the most sense. RSI is low, and that's a good sign. It should be a little bit lower possibly. Stochastic showing some life, and it is starting to kind of, you know, wane a little bit. That kind of makes some sense, but we have plenty of room to run up still, and then there's plenty of reversals halfway up. So if it does die here and comes back down, that support area or that 200 main line will be what's at play. And then, of course, bulls where you want them, bears where you want them. Moving forward, OEC on this time frame makes a lot of sense if it does hold long term, like in a month or two, we could easily see 10-15% if it does keep moving the way it's supposed to be moving. So next is OPTT, one that I've called multiple times to some fairly good success. And, you know, this is definitely more volatile than my usual plays. There's more risk to be had with this play. But over time, you can see a lot of, you know, higher lows. I actually called it right over here, said this looks good. And it ran up and I was like, oh, snap. Now over here, we do have lower highs, but higher lows making some form of a triangle. Now, it's not perfect when it comes to resistance trend lines. You could probably argue that this is probably what you're looking at right about here, which is fine, because if this does hold here, we're talking almost 26% to the first resistance trend line. And so if this triangle does form and does come true, it could be a great purchase. And again, with this kind of volatility, the worst case if it all breaks down here is 6%. That's the worst case where it should be. If you want to be more risk averse and be more afraid, use the 10-hour chart and we can see if this all does break down here. You know, this does break down below here, possibly to 267. You know, you lost 3%. You could buy back in when you see some more life. But OPTT, given the great reward, the pattern's forming a nice triangle here. If it does continue forward, that could be a really big play. Let's check the indicators. So we can see once again it is below both the 50 and the 200. The main thing that's stopping it or deterring it is the 200, and that's going to be where your price target in the short term should be. So if it does show some life here, you know, the 50 seems to be a small problem, and that's the case. You're making, you know, 10% still, which is fine. But, you know, if you do move up here and kind of hit this area, you know, 15%, you may want to start thinking about getting out, which again, to some folks may sound like a lot, and then it is. But when it comes to risk versus reward, if you're going to risk 6% for 15, it's not bad, but it's not too great either. RSI is below 30, exactly where we want it. Stochastic is low, exactly where we want it. And then the vortex is low, exactly where we want it. A lot of great stuff sliding in for OPTT. A lot. But we have to make sure, even this kind of market with this kind of great deal, stop losses and risk management is always going to be the #1 goal. So make sure while you move forward with OPTT, if you do purchase it, you have a stop loss, you have a plan, and everything's ready to go, because you can get burned very quickly. We've been seeing a lot of sell-offs recently, and OPTT will sell off harder than other tickers. So make sure you guys are prepared for a stop loss strategy. Next is SBSW, and this is also a very interesting setup. We can see that there is higher lows across the board recently, lower highs, but then again, higher lows. As of recent, making another type of triangle. And we have a lot of triangles forming. And I mean, some folks love them, some folks hate them. I have a tendency of finding very similar setups throughout the day and whatever the market shows us, and we can see a lot of triangles are forming. We can see right now, probably best case is 6% and some change. Worst case, you're going to lose 3%. So make sure if you are using a stop loss, that you kind of move it up. I think if you're going to be really nervous about this one, your lowest lower low over here is too far away. But this area, the support area, if you do buy in here and this all does break, you know, 2%, you can go home with that and be okay with a 3-to-1 ratio for bulls versus bears here if it does go higher and does a good move here. But if it does break a higher high and keeps going, we're in a great position moving forward. I think this is still a very strong ticker. You know, over time, showing a lot of strength. If it can hold volume, if it can keep moving, SBSW could be fantastic moving forward. Let's check the indicators. We can see that it is below both the EMA lines. I think this is a perfect example of a crossover play you want to wait for. I think value makes a lot of sense here, so you want to go off of that. More kudos for you. I think it's a great idea. It's still technically dropping like a brick, so you don't want to like buy into it in this kind of downtrend. Like, I'm gonna time the market. Yeah, you can. It gets kind of rough sometimes, especially if the market's so high up and near the resistances. It may be kind of rough to buy this kind of ticker. But if this does break above the 200 and holds, well, now we have a whole different conversation, because now the 200 can be your stop loss area. It breaks above the 50, now we're looking pretty. And again, there may not be massive gains, you know, 6%. Right here was a fake out, 1%, you know, over here, 5%. But you can wait for a crossover if you want to do that. This probably makes more sense with this kind of ticker. The RSI is low, stock is low, bulls low, bears overbought. SBSU, SBSW. It's been a long day. It's a really good looking ticker for this kind of play. I would wait for a crossover more often than not with this, but if it does show some life and does get above those email lines, it could be a fantastic purchase moving forward. Next is TSE. What's good about this is that it's an obvious broadening wedge. And I know some folks are like, but that means that it's not going to hold possibly. Well, it never does, right? There's never a pattern that lasts more than like 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is. Like some will go on and make more gains, right? But it goes up, goes down, different fluctuations. We know that the possibility of us hitting this resistance line is probably pretty slim, right? 32%. Now it does that. I'm not going to say it doesn't. It's made 52% and 43%. So 32 is not out of the question, right? But to be frank, to be much more like, realistic, I think hitting 70 would be a much better price target from here. Go up, get your 7.5%, put a trailing stop loss in that area. It makes a lot more good sense to me. Now, if we see, because I don't see any real resistance trend lines here, I see much more horizontal. If we break above here, all bets are off. I don't know where the next resistance would be, probably closer to like $71, and ride up till there. But this support trend line, massive. This support horizontal line, massive. I'm sure the 200 email line somewhere here that's going to make a big difference as well. Let's check the indicators. As we can see, it doesn't really get this close to the 200 email line very often. I mean, it does over here. And I mean, I'm not overly stressed, but it's losing some steam. You should be a big concern if it does break the 200 for sure. It's trying to break above the 50. That's going to be your go signal. There's no value. There's no way you can buy and be like, oh, it's a good value play. A good value play would be probably closer to 61.85. Here, if it does break above both resistance and EMA line it holds, long term speaking, I see no problem with that. It may bounce around for a few days, but right here, a good bet. If it does die, cut after maybe 3% and call it a day. But if it breaks that EMA line, you're in some good company for sure. RSI is fair, stocks high, it's consolidating. So again, the indicators don't really share what you want to see. You want to see them all low. But seeing as it is consolidating here for a while, a big move is happening, hopefully, and hopefully it's going to be green. If not, have a stop loss. So I think moving forward, TSE, it makes a lot of sense to try and to watch it, but I want to see that 50 crossover first before I buy it. Last and most certainly not least, ultra clean technology. Now, I'm not very bullish on technology short term, and I mean that in the context of how good technology is overall. As I fix my hair, oh goodness, technology is always going to outperform utilities, right? That's just they're not in the same ballpark of market cap, right? But UCTT and technology as of right now, I think it has a lot of value. I think even though we're close to resistance on the trend line, and if you watch the mini spiders and such on technology, I think this one has a lot of potential still, even though we're not really at value in the whole sector, right? I think there's still a lot of potential to be had. UCTT, this trend line is not perfect, okay, but this is also what I think is beautiful, is that it's been a very nice ascension. It's not too quick. I mean, it's gone, our first push up, it's now about 161% in about a year. So that's a lot, but it's definitely not out of the ordinary, right? We can definitely see, about 164, half a year, sorry. I saw 347 bars, half a year. Not too bad at all. I mean, there's been much less ascension, but I think the professional price targets are pretty high. A lot of folks are fundamentally very high on this one. And I think the risk, I think you need to move the support up after today. It's been holding okay up here. Move it up a little bit. I think this is definitely a good support area. If this all breaks down 4%, wait. I think that this, again, long term has a lot of potential. Even off this one move, I think hitting 29, 30% makes some sense. I wouldn't definitely not be out here like, it's going to hit it for sure, boys, we got this. I'm not overly confident. I think there's this resistance here at $58 and some change. Does make sense to be hit though. But UCTT, fundamentally, technically, it makes a lot of sense. It's a really beautiful setup. I do like it a lot. Let's check the indicators. As of right now, it bounces off to 50. It's below it. So again, you have options. Do you think this is a good value? I think it's a good value. I think it could be better, but it's a good value. You want to buy when it gets a little bit lower. That makes a lot of sense. If it does cross above the 50, well, there you go. You have some form of confirmation. If it keeps going and runs up from there, just have the 50 MA area. So not the line itself. You're not going to want to do that. But, maybe have like, 56.11, 56.15. Anywhere down here can be your stop loss for a fake out if it does come back down. You get out, you can get back in if you need to, but, move that stop loss up. If it breaks above the 50, it could be really, really good. RSI is low, stock is low, but pushing up. I see no divergences that are negative for it. You actually say it's probably a bullish one right here. for sure. Definitely a bullish divergence forming, so it's actually a good sign right there. Bulls low, bears high. I think UCTT moving forward the next weeks or months could be a fantastic purchase for sure. And there you guys have it. 8 great tickers for tomorrow into this week. Again, it's really important to understand that this is an educational channel along with being applicable. I think any of these plays are completely fine to play moving forward. Oh, my hair. Duh. Right, they're going to be fantastic moving forward. I do think it's important to pick your spots, though. As we get higher and higher in the S&P and on the NASDAQ, you should really enjoy these kinds of bull markets. You should not be discouraged. Just because the major indexes are that high, though, you need to be careful where you pick your spots. If you can get in lower, that's probably best. Now, I think it's foolish to think that we're not going to melt up, up and down for a while up here. That's a very large possibility with Jerome Powell printing the money that he is doing. So I wouldn't be like, I can't spend any money, I don't want to do it, for sure. But you also shouldn't be overly euphoric. So I think these are some great takers that have good value and they're low risk. I think that's a big part of YouTube that's missed. A lot of folks talk about the same exact tickers over and over again. I want to bring some diversity. With that being said, if you enjoy this kind of content, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. I do appreciate it. Otherwise, have a good rest of your Monday. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.